that. Joe Rexrode joining me, Marky, Billson on Tri-City Sports Now. But I know that you wrote a column here in the Tennessean today about maybe the least popular, at least at the time right now, sports writer in Tennessee, Dan Wolken. Wolken is a sports writer for Yahoo who criticized Tennessee for hiring Phil Fulmer as the AD, said, what kind of a press conference is this? What kind of a dumpster fire is going on? Internally all over, they're laughing at Tennessee. Greg Schiano wasn't such a bad choice after all. But you've conversed with them in all this. And let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the takes of Wolken concerning the state of Tennessee's football program?
Yeah, well, first of all, Marky, thanks for having me. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, really with Wolken, and you're right, he had all those takes, and I don't think he was very exclusive in a lot of those takes at that time either. I mean, the entire search was pretty disastrous with some very embarrassing moments, and there's been embarrassing moments since then. I mean, the dismissal of Beverly Davenport, and that memo and everything. There's been a lot of rough spots here for Tennessee. But to me, the reason I wrote about Dan was because, there's hating him and there's ripping his takes and thinking he's condescending and all that. I encourage Vols fans to continue with that. But, my problem with some of the discussion around this is sort of the idea that he was unethical. And, of course, that revolves around he broke the story. He got the story from John Curry. There was a documents came out from Freedom of Information requests that showed the conversation. And, my point here is that, look, right or wrong, Wolken actually did believe Greg Schiano would have been a good fit. He wrote that opinion. Some people think that he just wrote that opinion to make John Curry happy and help his source out. And that's not true. And that would be unethical and dishonest. And frankly, to me, I wouldn't want to see Dan Wolken work another day if that's how he conducted himself, and that's not how he conducts himself. And so that was the impetus for this, because it's, again, I'm all for the feud and for criticism for him, but to me that's just not an accurate representation of what he did here.
Well, I mean, just to go on with this, isn't it legitimate to say, I think Schiano would be a good head coach for whatever reason? I mean, he did win 10 games at Rutgers and such. I didn't necessarily want the guy with the Penn State baggage to come down and coach the Tennessee Volunteers or anywhere, really. But at the same time, I mean, Tom Bradley was just hired as a secondary coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was around all that mess as well. It's a legitimate take. I mean, and as a result, I mean, let me ask you this. I mean, what would you compare Wolken with, say, the take of a Clay Travis, who tweets out, hey, Vols fans, you've got to let people know this isn't a good hire, go to Twitter, and by the end of the day, it seems like the entire state is against Greg Schiano. How would you compare to what Wolken did to what, say, Clay Travis did?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, too. It's not absolutely coming from Mars to think that Schiano could be a good coach, and I think that kind of gets lost in this, too, because people did. I mean, look, there was a lot of exaggerating of, the situation at Penn State with Greg Schiano, and we don't know exactly the deal is. We just know that one time his name was mentioned in in hours and hours of deposition, and so there's some question of whether he knew something or whatever, but, that's been turned into, he covered up child rape at Penn State. Now, to me, I didn't like the idea of Schiano because I think his tenure at Tampa Bay, and I know the NFL and college is different, but I thought it was just disastrous beyond that word. It was, I mean, some of the things you heard about him from players who played for him there, that to me offset what he did at Rutgers, which was very good. But again, like the idea that he could be a good coach, if you look at Rutgers and if you know how hard it is to win there, and what he did there was awfully impressive. So you can make the case for him. And yeah, I think that with Clay, he definitely whipped up the frenzy. And again, I think that people, exaggerated the Penn State thing. And I think that, if Greg Schiano was a highly attractive coach with a great record who'd won a national championship somewhere, and the exact same situation happened, it probably wouldn't have been the same kind of reaction. again, like, all these takes are reasonable. I have a very different one from Wolken on this. But what's unreasonable to me is the idea that, now, that's actually not Wolken's take. He just made it up to make John Curry happy. I mean, it's just not true.
And I would agree with you totally. We're talking to Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean. He knows Dan Wolken, who's the guy that doesn't think Phil Fulmer is a good athletic director hire. But, I've had my own criticisms of that. I mean, when you look at this, it's like you're trying to say, okay, it's 1998 again. And I do, wonder things like, okay, when Fulmer was hired to be the athletic director, out came any possibility of Mike Leach taking over the program, which would have made SEC Media Days, where you're at, a lot more interesting. And in came legitimately Coach Dull and Jeremy Pruitt, a guy who has never coached before, and a guy who, when I have dealt with them at the Vols Caravan, I said, this guy was hired to take orders from somebody who never thought he should have been fired in the first place. That was my take of the whole circumstance there. Is criticism of Fulmer as the athletic director legitimate in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, I looked at it like, the problem is just, at that point, if you've got a situation that's untenable with your chancellor and your AD and the search is just gone, and, I understand if John Curry disappears for a day and you don't hear from him and all that stuff, then what are you going to do at that point? It was an absolute quick fix, like, oh my gosh, we have to have someone in there. And, hey, I can't think of anyone more suited in that situation. He's already there as a special advisor to the president. Obviously, he knows the lay of the land. If you trust him as a football guy, gives you a chance to go find a good football coach. So, so overall, yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out long term. There's a lot of parts about this job that I don't know that Phil Fulmer, is prepared to do. But given the circumstances, that was, you could also look at it like, wow, that's a heck of a save. And so far, I think what we've seen from Fulmer is, first of all, he's good with Vols fans. He's good as a front man. I think he has taken some pressure off Jeremy Pruitt. He is going to raise money, which is a big part of it. And it seems like he is comfortable delegating a lot of things to people, as he should, because there's a lot more to that job than it used to be when the ball coach sort of retired and be AD for 10 years. It's just not the same job. But I think he gets that. So, so far, I think everything you've seen from him makes sense. And obviously, it's going to be judged by Pruitt. That's what it all comes down to. If it turns out that Jeremy Pruitt turns this into a real football program again, then it's going to be looked at as a heck of a save, given those circumstances. And we're just going to have to wait and see on that. There's not much else he'll be judged on, although I do think the Holly Warlick and women's basketball situation is, a very tough one for Fulmer to come in on, and he's got to be able to handle that correctly too.
Joe, I got to go here because I'm up against a hard break. Okay, I don't know what your time frame is. I do appreciate you coming on. I don't know if you can stay on through the break. I got to imagine you're real busy.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. That's it. You'd say no more. I totally understand. I thank you for the time that we had right here. It's good to get that perspective. I'd like to see if you have any contacts for Wolken. I've tried to tweet him. I think he sees Tennessee and says, I'm not going on with that guy. And but anyway, I'll talk to you a little bit about that maybe later on in the day or tomorrow, okay?
Sounds great.
All right. Bye-bye.
For complete hearing evaluation with Dr. Daniel R. Schumeyer and Associates.
Hey, Karthik, watching from Hawaii, I say. We'll be back here in just a sec. Going to the Marky Billson Facebook, I believe.
For their Johnson
I'll have to
City
check.